Tame the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test, laid all your doubts to rest.
Hi everyone, welcome from your Intuition Queen to a new episode of Intuitive Queens podcast. Today I have the pleasure to have with me Pearl Flax, who is a marriage coach. And I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, but I always do that. Hi Pearl, welcome.
Totally fine. Good morning, everyone. Tuning in
How are
from
you?
New York. I'm super excited to be here, Mara. Really excited.
Thank
For
you.
those of us who don't know, although I sound super Americanized, we have something in common. We share the same language. So, buongiorno.
Yes, buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Yes, because it's morning for you and it's
Yes.
afternoon over here. All right.
That's right.
So you have a really intricate story, if I may say. You are a marriage coach right now, and I know this comes from having gone through some situations in your life. So I'd like for you to tell us your story on how did you get here? Because I know you were working in corporate earlier in your career. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yes. I think maybe the right way to start is by saying that it was a journey of awakening, being swept up in what everybody else does, being sucked into the corporate world and doing what's expected, to having a rude awakening, so to speak, of finding a different path and figuring out what my real calling and mission is. So life kind of dealt me certain cards, and I think some of the cards were kind of like dealt to me when I tuned out, listening to myself, listening to my intuition, which I think many of us do as women.
Yeah.
Because I think we have this inborn, skill to know, there is like an inner guide within us, and depending on what our story is and depending on what our childhood's consisted of, we can lose trust in ourselves and lose our path. And I think that that's what happened to me at first, kind of like knowing and not listening. So of course I married, I'm not going to say the word wrong guy, because I think it was the right thing at the time, because I had a beautiful girl from that marriage. But that's when, I fell into the corporate world, just doing what was expected of me to do, just to stay in that survival mode. And for years that was working, because it was working. Because it works for many of us, although like we don't even have time to breathe and think about what we're doing. And there was always this feeling in my heart that, and I had that feeling from a very young age on, that I wanted to make a difference. Like I knew, like I want to make a difference, and I didn't know how. My mother, may she rest in peace, she always used to refer to me as an idealist. She's like, like, really, life is not like this. And I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I always used to have that vision that we can change the world. So I gave it up because, people talked me out of it. Like, you can't change the world. You can't make that difference. So I did what everybody else was doing. And when I realized, like, there's something wrong in my life, I needed to look within. Why did I make the choices I made? Why did I marry, my ex-husband? How did I end up in the situations I did? I recognized that really it was due to the fact that I hadn't figured out what a healthy relationship consists of. And I knew that there's a way for me to find the truth in relationships, the truth in relationship with myself and a partner. So I set out to do a tremendous amount of research and continue my education in couples therapy.
Right.
Yes, I know it sounds ridiculous. Like, how did I go from this to that? But it's where it's led me to, now, and it's led me to rebuild my life. I found a wonderful man who is my best friend, and his journey with me has also been a challenging one. Like you said, you've been through some situations. I don't know how, I don't know how much you want me to share, but I'm happy to share whatever you want me to share.
Oh, whatever feels right for you.
Whatever feels right for me. I think what is really important for me to relay is that there are so many women who come from stories or worlds or childhoods that have been emotionally traumatic to them, or it doesn't even have to be necessarily traumatic, but really not prepare them for relationships. And when women get into that state, like, okay, you know, love is not for me and things are never going to work out for me, I'm here to tell you quite the contrary, because I come from that world. I came from a very dysfunctional upbringing in terms of, you know, not seeing healthy modeling. And I did get into that trap myself, right? Like you are a product of your childhood, and you don't really know how to interact in an adult relationship in a healthy way if you haven't had healthy modeling, or if you had dysfunction, you know, with one parent or both parents. So, you know, a lot of people get extremely hopeless, like they feel hopeless, especially, you know, when you have failed relationships, which I'm an expert in. Right? It's like you want to know about you want to know about how to feel. You could talk to me about that. So, but I look at this, you know, at a failed relationship or failed relationships. I look at every experience as a learning experience, and as painful as those relationships can be, which they can be, and they can be, you know, devastating. You know, when I came out of my divorce, you know, I battled a 6-year court battle. It was absolutely exhausting and devastating, but it also built me, and it gave me the resilience and endurance to get through and become the person that I am today. It kind of molded me into who I am today and helps me understand people and situations much better than had I not gone through that experience.
Well, wow, you touch upon a very important topic here. Well, actually, two, I think. First of all, when you said about, you know, if you had relationship that ended however they did because of whatever was your background, we get guarded, and that's true. Of course, we don't want to suffer anymore. We don't want to maybe get again into abusive relationship, or so we tend to stay put, and we tend to not open our heart because we might get broken again. So on this point, because you said you've been an expert in broken relationships, so what is that thing that you would say to women to at least start opening up their self and open up their heart to a new possibility to find someone that really can match their heart and their desire, and release that negative experience and also hurt, and that, you know, still stays in our body, in our mind, and blocks us from moving forward?
I think my answer is going to be surprising to you, or maybe to your audience, because you're probably expecting me to give you a tip about the step when they open up to the relationship, what it is that they need to do, or how to do that. And really, it's a step before that. It really boils down to the relationship with yourself. And if you can get to a space within yourself to heal your own self, connect to the part of you that you didn't fall in love with, then you will automatically be able to, first off, attract a different type of person. Because, you know, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and the energies that we put out there are the energies that we bring back into ourselves. And if we go into a relationship unhealed, that's the kind of relationship we're going to end up in. So I think really what it boils down to first is the journey of healing that wounded childhood. Now, the truth of the matter is that we can't do complete healing outside of a relationship, because healing really happens in a relationship more than any other time. But you can do parts of it on your own before you get into it. And the part of it that's critical is the awareness. Your own awareness of self. You know, what story is there underlying underneath all of you that you're unaware of, that guides you to make the choices that you're making, the decisions that you're making, and has led you to do what you did up until now. Kind of reevaluating your path and your story. Because, you know, even after I got divorced, I mean, I was single for 12 years, which is a really long time. I was a single mom raising my daughter, a beautiful daughter, and she I mean, she kept me sane and she kept me going. And I think she's the main reason why I went onto my healing path and my healing journey. But right after, you know, I got divorced, of course, I had another unhealthy toxic relationship.
Mm.
It was like, because I was still in that space and I
Yeah.
hadn't done the work. And then at one point I was like, this has to stop. This is me. I know this is me. I need to go onto this journey. And it wasn't easy. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, this was like a walk in the park. but but it was so worth it, because I always said to myself, I'm never going to give love a second chance, so to speak, if I'm not going to find my best friend. I knew that in my heart. I was like, I'm not, I've done the marriage, I have a child, I'm not really interested in going down that path just for the
Mm.
sake of having a ring on my finger. I don't need that. I was very independent. So I knew in my heart, if I do this, he's got to be my best friend. And my husband now, when we met, we were friends at first for years. I was like, it wasn't even a consideration for marriage. It was like, dude, we're friends, like that's not happening. Like the first time he told me he wants to take me on a date, I just cracked up laughing. I was like, that's funny, like, no, like we're friends. And he's like, no, I'm serious. I would like to take you on a date. And I'm like, what? You for real?
I love this. I love this. Well, you talk about healing, and I agree with you. I agree with you when you say it all starts from you, and I agree with you because that's exactly what I say to my clients, to everybody. We need to give ourselves what we think we don't have, and what we think our relationship don't give us. So whatever family you come from, if there has been something missing there, you're gonna have to find a way to give it to yourself. And healing and going to ask for help to someone else that can actually help you in that journey is a critical thing to do in order to start your journey. Then you might, I feel, do things by yourself, but I think that you need that kind of help. So what was that, like you said, okay, you had enough, so you had to find a way to stop this. So what did you do then? Like, how did you know anybody that could help? What did you do?
So I kind of was, I was very fortunate and kind of lucky how the doors opened up for me, because I do think that when just like even energetically, when you're put out there, like I
Mm.
want to change and I want something to become different in my life, then things just open up. It's just the way that, the energy of the universe works. And at the time, actually, I was dating this really unhealthy, toxic guy. So it was right after my divorce. I just felt that was the part that I actually listened to. At that point in time, my intuition was like, okay, you got to stop running away from what you're feeling. If something was nagging inside of me that something was wrong and I need to get away from that
Mm.
relationship. He was actually an addict, a drug addict, which he was a very, very functional drug addict. So I couldn't really tell. And
Mm.
brilliant. So I was extremely attracted to his brilliance because he was a genius. And he had decided at one point, I have commitment issues. I just come out from a crazy burnt relationship and I'm like, dude, I'm taking it easy. And he's like, I'm taking you to my therapist because you have commitment issues. So the good news ended up being that I ended up staying with the therapist. She became my guide and my guardian angel, and I got rid of him. So he kind of gave
Right.
me a gift.
Well, thank you then.
Yes, it was like such an interesting, twist of events, because he thought she's going to help him get me. And
Mm.
instead, she helped me get rid of him. I mean, it's like, it really didn't work out very well for him, but she was like the door opener for me.
Mm.
And as I started the journey, I was very pulled and drawn towards the healing process of, I mean, I went back in college. I went for psych, believe it or not. It wasn't the plan to go into corporate. I was planning to go into psychology, but then life happened, and then just things just evolved by itself. You know
Yeah.
how these things work. And she opened up that door for me again, and I spent years, even after finishing therapy with her, so to speak. And I feel like, I don't think the word is right for saying finishing therapy, because I think that healing is a process
Yeah,
and it
I agree.
takes a lifetime. We crossed a certain path at some point where
Mm.
we became friends, and she wasn't what I needed, so to speak, necessarily in my growth or healing process. But we always stayed friends. And one day I just, I mean, really what it boiled down to is I knew I need to go back to what I always wanted to do, to making that change and making that difference. but I was stuck. I was stuck in the corporate world till something happened. If you want, I can tell you what happened. It was pretty traumatic. Um, I actually started my journey of helping other people. After I went through a 6-year court battle, a lot of people approached me because I was kind of like considered a success. The people who knew me as an independent woman who was thriving and surviving a very, very difficult trial. So people came to me for advice, and people kept on telling me, like you need to help women. You need to help women who are stuck in, abusive relationship, toxic relationships, and empower them and tell them how to navigate this. So I added something to my portfolio, and I specialized in divorce coaching and mediation. So I was
Right.
kind of like got into that world first, and it definitely fulfilled me a lot because I wanted to help these women who I saw being so stuck, so overwhelmed by that process, and having gone through it, I kind of like kind of know what it feels like and can completely empathize with the pain and the turmoil of it. But what really created the massive, massive shift was a traumatic event. And I know it sounds strange, like how can that lead you to this? But 2 years into getting married to my current husband, he had a heart attack and a stroke. And at the time, I was still half in corporate and doing on the side, helping women in divorce coaching. And I couldn't let go of the corporate world. I just, I was so attached to it, and I was so afraid
Yeah.
of, letting go of what was comfortable for me. But I think the universe had other plans, and it kind of like forced me out of it because my husband was on life support, and one of the companies that I had a contract with asked me, like, when are you coming back? We need to continue the project that we were working on. And I'm sitting there in the waiting room thinking to myself, you gotta be kidding me. I don't know how to answer this question. When am I coming back? My husband is fighting for his life. I can't think straight. I don't know if I'm coming or going. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew when my husband would wake up, So I remember putting down the phone and having this weird feeling inside of me saying, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is not where you're supposed to be. How can people be so, I don't know what the word is, but cold and maybe even cruel to focus only on money when my life is at stake over here, my husband's life is at stake over here. And I knew right then and there, without really making a concrete decision, but I knew right then and there, I'm walking away from that
Right.
completely. Like that was, the complete turning point in saying, that's it, I'm done. Now I'm going to focus on making that difference in the world because this makes no sense for me anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when it happened.
Well, that's amazing. No, but I think that when we are faced with these critical and very difficult situations in our life, I do think it's right. You said something right. Like the universe had other plans for me. And oftentimes they happen, you switch way just because something really bad happens to you. And, that fear of your perception completely changes. And that's
Oh yeah.
when you start to look at your life and be like, why am I doing this? Like, there
Oh
is
yeah.
something more important over here. Uh, I've been that since now. Yeah, I feel that certain things, as much as they're super painful for us to deal with, if you lose someone, you go through a terrible breakup like you did, whatever it is that happens to us, I feel they're all stepping stones to get to the point in which we finally listen and we finally do what we are supposed to do. Because all the stories of my guests are exactly going in the same direction. Something happens, they wake up, and normally it's never something easy. Normally
Yes.
it's something extremely painful and worrying, and all of a sudden something inside of you turns and you're like, okay, I need to make my life happen like I always wanted it to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that's beautiful.
And I'll tell you the weird thing that evolved over the years when I was, when I was mediating couples and I was in really heavily invested in that coaching modality or counseling modality, you know, I came across so many couples who were sure that the divorce is the right answer for them. And as we started working together, I was like, but it's not. You know, it's not. You guys haven't figured out what the real problem is. And I'm not saying, you know, I say this very cautiously. Some couples should get divorced. Some people should not be together. But I realize some people could stay together. And the reasons why they haven't figured it out is because they haven't figured out how to heal their childhood wounds. And that's why I told you the very first thing, that is really the first stepping stone. And when I work with couples, childhood story is a real big part of our process, because we bring our children into the picture, meaning our inner child into the picture, both him and her. So when I went through this experience over and over again with one couple after the other, I started questioning myself. So I want to make that difference in the world. And what if the difference to them would be to heal and save their marriage? So my heart was very, very conflicted, because I didn't know, you know, like I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore at this point in time. And I remember going to one of my mentors and my guides, and I said, like, I don't really know what to do. I feel so split. You know, here I have these women who need my help because they come to me and they want, you know, they want out of a relationship. And here I see these couples who can really make it work. I know they can make it work. There's still love there and there's still so much potential. And I'll never forget it. I didn't like what one of my mentors said. He said, well, if that keeps happening to you, it must be that that's your calling too. And I was like, no, you can't do that. That's way too confusing. So the truth is that my life shifted into really, again, you know, pretty much my heart being committed and fully dedicated to doing full-time couples counseling. But it doesn't mean that every relationship works out. And fortunately for me, because I'm in this position, I'm able to help them mediate and not go through the trauma of court. Because, you know, being in court for 6 years is something that I can tell everyone that's out there and wants to, you know, wants to consider getting out of a relationship. It's extremely costly. It's going to take everything out of you. Lawyers do not have your best interest in mind. They have an interest to make a lot of money. And the longer they can, you know, they can draw out the trial process, the better it is for them. And I do feel, you know, not just because I have a big heart, because I do, but a mediator, typically speaking, never has that interest. They're just wired differently. It's not about the money. It's about finding a way for the couple to really do what's best for them and for their children. So fortunately for me, I mean, I try as much as I can to work with a couple for as long as I can to get them to reconcile and to heal and improve and pretty much rebuild their marriage. Some couples come in, you know, really at the end of the rope, you know, when it's really towards the end, and some couples don't. Some couples come in early enough where they feel this is a small frustration that we're dealing with and we need to work on it now. So, you know, I like those couples, you know, always.
Yeah, I can imagine it's easier.
less damage control. Yes, a lot easier, a lot easier.
All right. So what are the things that you find, well, before I actually say this, I think inner child healing is something that everybody should do, because we all are wounded in a way or in another. And you said that you come from a dysfunctional family, so I can only imagine how big the wounds were. But even if you don't, there is still something there that is stopping you and is triggering you in your relationship at work. So I feel that inner child healing is something that everybody should be doing in order to move forward and really behave like the person that you are, and no longer like the 8 years old, 15 years old that has been left behind or has been told something. So I think that's like crucial for everybody. The other question that I had for you was, what are the things that you feel are very common for a couple in terms of why they come to you?
I mean, I think I'll answer the question by saying to you, what's something that every couple struggles with? Hannah, you know, I think that's probably the safest way to go. Honestly, it's amazing, because I always say this to people. It fascinates me to no end, right? It's like anything you do in life, you need to go through a process of learning. It doesn't make a difference what it is, right? If you want to drive a car, for heaven's sake, you need to get a license. In order to get the license, you got to go for driving lessons. You got to take your permit. You know, there's a process till you get that license. You're not just walking into the the DMV here. Hi, here, I'm getting my license today. The only thing in the world that doesn't work this way is a marriage. You know nothing about relationships and you get that license prior to knowing anything about a relationship, which is fascinating. Just think about it. Like nothing in life works that way. So, and I think what would give you the license, so to speak, to be married is learning communication skills. Because I have to say this, and I believe that 100%. First off, you know, you use the word dysfunction. I think in some ways we all have some dysfunction. It's just the way life works. You know, it's some, obviously there's some traumatic dysfunctions. I'm not talking about trauma dysfunction. I'm saying on a general basis, even having parents who have poor communication skills, that's a dysfunction too. So I would say, I don't know anybody really, not for my friends, not for my clients, not family members, anybody that doesn't have some sort of like dysfunctional communication parent or caregiver or something in their life that hasn't seen some sort of modeling where, you know, maybe they are, you know, not communicating at all. Maybe they're not sure how to communicate, how to get through it. Maybe some of them are very withdrawn. I mean, depending on how old you are, you know, if you come from like old school parents, they believe that children ought to be seen and not heard. So communication was really not empowered, right? Like, if you feel me. So it was like, if I was a good girl and I kept quiet, that was great. Then I made my parents happy. But that's dysfunctional because that's not how life is supposed to be. And that's not how we empower children and make them into healthy adults. So I would say the one critical key thing that every single couple struggles with is really healthy communication tools. And the good news is that you can learn it. There is a science to it and you can learn it. It's not complicated. It's just not something that's taught. I truly believe that they need to add that into the school program because I don't think parents will teach it. But I think it's the most important thing. It really is.
You're right. And also learning to communicate properly with different people is also learning to understand where they're coming from and also put your ego aside and really get to the fact of the matter and understand what is the actual situation without you involving yourself unnecessary because you have your pride or your ego is telling you to do, but really just switch around and see from a different perspective and try to find that way, that bridge in between the two people and have a communication. But I do agree with you, it's not something easy, it's not something we've been told about it. And if you have a family, parents that their way of communication is maybe shouting at each other, then there you go. I mean, you're probably going to think this is the way to do it until you hit some kind of wall or something happens and you realize that's not the way.
Right. I'll tell you a simple thing that this is like the basics that I tell couples all the time. There are two sentences, two words that follow one another that are completely meaningless or pointless if you don't really learn how to do it effectively. And those are thank you and I'm sorry. It's, most of us, as kids, we're like, say sorry, right? Or, apologize for what you've done. But the truth of the matter is that when you say I'm sorry to your partner, it's completely meaningless. Just think about it, because what it means is I just want this argument to stop. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to say I'm sorry. So I'll just shut her up or shut him up, right? Yeah. But the reality is that in order for you to heal that wound that you're apologizing for, you have to acknowledge what that wound actually is, which means that if you don't follow with saying I'm sorry for having been insensitive to you and doing X, Y, and Z, for example, right? Or like, I'm sorry that, I didn't remember that it's anniversary and I can't imagine how hurt you must be now. Then the apology is really an ineffective apology. That's what I call it. It's just ineffective because it's like, okay, I'm sorry. So that's also a sense of like a poor communication. And when you say thank you, you're like probably wondering, what do you mean? Thank you? Like, that's not good. It's beautiful to say thank you, and we're taught to be appreciative and express your gratitude and say thank you, right? But saying thank you to your partner without saying what you're thanking them for, meaning without telling them what they did means to you leaves them walking away not understanding really who you are and how you operate. Because that's the window of opening to let them know, hey, thank you for buying me these flowers. Now I'm feeling really loved by you. Oh, is that how simple it is to love her? Because
Right.
men don't understand the cues of just, oh, thank you. Okay, it's very nice. I guess I got a flower. It's a big deal. Big whoop. She doesn't really like them. She doesn't really appreciate them. And then they're surprised, like, why didn't you buy me flowers this week? you know, because he doesn't know how much that meant to you, and you're not really expressing yourself openly. I mean, that would lead us into a whole, conversation about real open vulnerable discussion and communicating from a space of vulnerability,
Yeah.
which I don't think we want to get into, but those are like the two basic ones that I generally get into, like basic. Most people are like, really, I can't just say thank you. I'm like, you could, but it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah, no, I think it's beautiful. I think you're right. Like saying sorry because I've done this and that, or because I made you feel this way, and saying thank you for this and other reason. I think it's really powerful because you really um, get into the other side and touching that person's heart in a way or in another. And then like maybe, you need to practice a little bit more, but I feel that it's really beautiful. And you're so right to say, thank you, I'm sorry. It's very easy nowadays, you can say it anytime, and that can not mean something. It can just be a way to end the conversation because you had enough. So I think this is one thing that I think it's really powerful in terms of communicating with your partner, but also, any relationship, family and friends. But you also touched upon vulnerability, and I feel it's so difficult to go to someone and say, I am sorry for what I did, and if this has caused you to feel la 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 la, or thank you for being here with me when I needed someone. And there are some people that are easy and they do it, and some others that feel really uncomfortable. So without getting too much into it, but what do you say when people tell you, oh, that makes me feel really uncomfortable, I can't say thank you for this, or I can't say sorry for that, although I would like to because I mean it?
So I hear the question, and I've had this from some people, especially clients who've had primarily trauma in childhood. Again, it's trauma in childhood, because the fear of really opening yourself up vulnerably comes from a different space. It doesn't just come from that relationship. There was a time prior to that they had tried to be vulnerable, and it was either shut down or not reciprocated in a way that made them feel comfortable or safe. As you know, as humans, our primary need is connection. It really is the air we breathe. It's as important as oxygen. And so our entire being is always under threat. Are we feeling safely connected to someone or not? And anytime that connection gets threatened, we shut back down and we will protect ourselves. So when, we'll just talk about women, when a wife has a difficult time opening up vulnerably and she has that fear, the best way to recognize it is whenever a fear is attached with, I would say, drama. And I don't mean to sound, like in any way judgmental, but there is more to it. It's like, I can't do it, right? Then I know, and then she knows that there is a story behind it. Right. Because there is a famous line that says, and whenever a reaction is hysterical, it's usually historical. In other words, there is something deeply rooted inside of her where she's already once in her life experienced something very devastating in that area before. It could be small, it could be big, it doesn't make a difference. It's how she processed it or didn't process it. So when a woman has this difficulty, like I have a really difficult time, like being vulnerable and opening myself up, there must have been a story at some point in her life where maybe she apologized to her parents, and she really wanted to genuinely apologize, and maybe the apology wasn't accepted. And that's a terrible experience for her. And really that's for her to work through the fear of, what if he won't accept my apology? What does that mean? Because what she's really afraid of is losing that intimate connection. That's what she's afraid of. She doesn't know it, but that's where she's at. So she has to work through that fear internally within herself, because the apology that she is giving for him to hear it, But if you're really healthy, if you're really in a healthy place, whether he accepts it or not won't affect you, because
Right.
you know that you've done the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So you won't feel impacted by it as badly. I'm not saying it feels great, but you won't feel
Yeah.
impacted as badly.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a codependency need of like, oh my God, you need to forgive me and you need to tell me exactly what I need right now. You know, and
Yeah.
sometimes partners need time. Sometimes we may give an apology and
Oh
they
yeah.
need time to process it, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people always say, well, I'm not going to sleep till you know, forgive me. Okay. And it's like, are you kidding me? You want to put a gun to his head? Like, it takes time. Maybe he just needs to sleep on it. And tomorrow morning, the sun will shine again and he'll feel differently. Like, can you give him some time? Like, you can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, we are all so impatient and we want things to happen now whenever we have made the decision or whatever. So I totally understand that. You mentioned what we crave is connection. So I want to ask you something. So while we are recording, we are both on lockdown because the situation is quite critical in New York and in London. And when the episode will be out, it's probably going to be hopefully better. But who knows if we will be still in lockdown or not. And I've been hearing stories of, and I've been hearing this sentence quite a lot. Oh my God, I cannot stand him. I cannot stand her anymore. So what would you say it's one way to cope in a situation where all of a sudden, from not being used to be with your partner for so long, because maybe you go to work, you see each other during the evening, and then you go to sleep, and then it's weekend. So it's a limited amount of time, and that's okay. But then all of a sudden you're home together, working from home, and you see a side of the other person that you don't necessarily know, because you don't know how the other person is at work unless you work with that person. And that might trigger things and situations. What would you say?
I'm kind of like smiling or grinning or whatever it is, because I've read quite a few, articles and reports about how we are facing a huge, huge increase of divorce at this point in time.
Already, wow.
Yes, and I'm like, oh, this is really great. And the truth of the matter is, this is my truth, and I believe that this is truth for every couple out there. And I do not believe that any of the issues that they're facing right now are new.
Mm-hmm.
I think that part of this pandemic is almost like a magnifying glass to issues
Right.
that we have been bearing, like just shove it on the carpet. Like, we're busy with life. Like, we're all very, very busy. So life is a beautiful, perfect, amazing escape for us. So, we all have relationship stuff from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't address them, they just become bigger, especially when there's so much time and focus right now on a relationship. Because I can tell you that relationships that are solid are actually getting a lot solider right
Yeah.
now, if that's a word. They're like really, they're bonding and they're strengthening their relationships like in beautiful ways. So when I hear couples telling me, like, oh my God, I'm going to kill her, or, I want to change the locks, or can we like create a separate quarantine space, it's really all the issues that they haven't really worked through or addressed prior to this. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that we as people don't need our space and our independence as well. So, there is this thing that when you're in confined space, and depending on how people live, some people live in very small quarters and they're like really suffocating with each other. You kind of have to give each other that space and respect that they have to have for themselves. And I have one couple in particular who the wife really needs a lot of independence, and she needs her time. That's how she's always been. She needs to just sit with herself somewhere and just take her journal and just not be disturbed. But she's home with the kids, with her husband. Her husband actually had the virus, so it was disastrous because he was really not feeling well. And she had no help from him, and she was really frustrated and triggered. And she's like, he doesn't let me breathe. He needs every 2 minutes something from me, and I can't breathe, and I can't breathe. So the reality is that what she really needs is space.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to honor that space, because we would honor that space normally, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult right now, but we have to kind of be creative and say, listen, hey, maybe twice a week, you could take care of the kids, if somebody has kids, and I can take a hot bath and just be undisturbed, like like, I really want to be undisturbed, with a bottle of wine and
Yeah.
some music, and just take the time to separate each other, so to speak, because separateness can bring closer connection. It's like, the heart grows fonder through distance sometimes, or through separation. It's part of what makes a relationship function, that, hey,
Yeah.
honey, I'm leaving for work and I'm coming, back from work. And it's like that reconnection. And you can create that. If you want to be really, really playful, you can play around and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go to the car for 30 minutes and we'll pretend that I was just away the entire day for work. And then you're going to open up your arms when I come back in and embrace me, and we'll pretend that we were just apart for the entire day. You can definitely bring humor into it, and kind of like creative ways. So for couples who really are struggling right now, I mean, first of all, it's actually what inspired me to put together a free manual with a tremendous amount of tips and work that they can do in their relationship. Because I'm like, what can I do to help other people right now? A lot of people can't afford counseling, they can't afford coaching. People are losing a tremendous amount of money right now, and the economy is going into massive crisis. So I'm like, I just want to do something to help people. So it's a beautiful booklet that I'm happy to share with you and your audience. And I say, you must dedicate at least 15-20 minutes a day to actually working on the relationship daily. I know it's hard. I know it's very, very hard. And I'm like everybody else. I'm human too, and I love my husband, and he is my best friend. But guess what? I'm a blended family. I adopted his 3 boys. I'm stuck at home with 3 boys. Okay, I'm sorry, 4 boys. Okay, it's 4, including him. Okay, so it's really different for me because it's not what I'm used to. It's like,
Right, yeah.
boys are boys. We're not going to talk about bathroom issues, up the seat, down the seat. We won't even get into it. I'm outnumbered by them right now, right? Like, I can't even start arguing with them. But the reality is that I also needed to figure out a way how to create closeness and intimacy with him. So we decided we are working on something together every single day, 15-20 minutes. We're doing a book together. We're doing the exercises together. And we're investing in our relationship. We are. Because technically speaking, you could say, hey, we are spending all day long together. Aren't we giving our relationship enough? No, you're not. You're not, because
it's the way
time,
you spend the time that makes a
correct.
difference.
It's the quality. It's the quality that you're investing in it. It's not the quantity. You could be sitting all day long together and not like do anything contributing towards the relationship. That doesn't count. It really doesn't. So really my advice would be, yes, it's hard. I am in the process of working on a mini program that I hope to be able to put out in the next week or two, time permitted, so to speak. I hope. I keep my fingers crossed.
Tell us where we can find you. So I guess if your program is not ready by the time the episode is out, they can still check out your website and see where to find you, right?
Yes. So I have, my website is pearlflax.com. And I have a Facebook group, and the Facebook group is really only for women. It's purposely done this way just because I didn't want to have to deal with the chaos of having men and women up there hooking up together. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry, guys. So it's for women, but it doesn't mean that they can't, work with their husbands together. Like when I do a lot of work together with a couple, but I'm inviting the women into it because I think that women are usually the ones that say, hey, we need to work on this. It's most of the time, I would say, statistically, it's the woman that drags the husband to do the work. Guys can be completely oblivious that there is a problem. Don't take it personal, guys, but it's the truth. Guys are like, what do you mean we're happy? What's the problem? What's the matter? I don't know what you're talking about, So I have this Facebook group. It's called Creating Happily Ever After. And the reason why it's called Creating is because I believe that we create our own realities. And it's a choice we make. It's a choice we make every single day. So you can create your happily ever after if you do the work, if you are committed, and if you have the mindset to do so. So if you're a woman who wants to really improve your marriage or like take it to the next level even, you are very welcome to join. It's a free group. And once again, it's Creating Happily Ever After on Facebook. And what else? That's the website, the Facebook. What else do you want me to share?
Everything, all your social media handles would be on the show notes. So if you have forgotten about one or two, don't worry. They can check it out on the show notes and find you there and then get in touch with you if they have questions or anything else.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Pearl, thank you so much for this conversation. I really love what you do, and I think it's so important to really change the perception and heal ourselves. And I think the fact that you've gone through this story and now you're doing this is what really we need, because we need people that know what they're talking about and also can help other people to heal themselves and have a happy life.
Yes. You know what they say, a happy wife, a happy life. That's why I work with the women.
There you go.
Start with the women.
Yes. I like that. Thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thank you, Mara. You have been an absolute, I mean, you're an amazing person, and what you do, the work you put out there is just absolutely beautiful. Like, really, like the world needs more people like you.
Thank you.
Besides that, you're Italian or awesome and, whatever.
Yes.
Besides for that, you know what I'm saying? Like, just your luck.
From an Italian and another Italian.
Yes. But you still have the accent, and I don't have it, so that's probably
and
me.
I absolutely adore your accent, so
my twisted accent.
All right, thank you again so much. It was good and fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Well, I hope you liked the conversation I had with her. We talked about so many important things on a different level for all of us, that you are in a relationship or not. Healing and the communication are so important. So I hope you've been inspired by what she said. If you feel like getting in touch with her, check the show notes. If you instead feel like getting in touch with me, as you know, you can find me on the intuitionqueen.com, and that's where you can find my 4 months program and all of the other sessions, healing sessions, intuitive sessions that I offer for whatever it is that you need. I do believe that emotional healing is the most important thing we can give ourselves. And once we heal our repressed emotions, we can be a better person. We can create the life that we want. We can find the right person for us, and everything just feels so different. So please to get in touch, and if you like this episode, please share, subscribe, and leave comments. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching.
Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door.